Okay, Common Core Geo kids, what is a 45, 45, 90 triangle? Well, 90 degrees means it's a right triangle. The two 45-degree angles means it's an isosceles right triangle. Okay, so 45, 45, 90. All right, means isosceles right triangle. Okay, so we're going to learn about the relationship between the sides. So we start off, I have this isosceles right triangle. I'll use numbers first so that it's easier to understand. So let's say this side is 3, this side is 3. We'll call this x. Now you already know how to use the Pythagorean theorem. So we have leg squared plus leg squared is hypotenuse squared. That adds to 18. And by now I've told you that you can use your calculator and type in 18 divided by x squared if you're not skilled at simplifying square roots without a calculator. And you will see that the answer is 3 rad 2. Remember, you look on the left column for that, and you'll see the 2 on the right when you go to the table. Okay. For those of you that want to do it by hand, you'd have the square root of 18 is x, which is the square root of 9 times the square root of 2, which is 3 rad 2. Or you can make your factor tree like your teachers taught you last year, 2, 9, 3, 3. Find the ones that match. Okay, circle your prime numbers. Since the 3's match, you just put the 3 outside, 3 rad 2. Whichever way you want to do it, doesn't make a difference to me. Okay, so look at this relationship. What happened to the 2 3's? They just got multiplied by rad 2. That's always going to be the case, okay? So if these sides are x and x, this would be x rad 2. Okay, so you need to write this rule down. And let me just put these angles in for you. Now let's take a look if we start with the hypotenuse. You have this previous rule written down. Okay, so let's say the hypotenuse is 8 rad 2. And then I want to find these two sides. So I'd have x squared plus x squared is 8 rad 2 squared. So that's 2x squared. And 8 rad 2 squared, you can do that on your calculator. But what the calculator would do is 64 times 2, because the square root of 2 squared is 2. Okay, that's just a fact off on the side. So you get 2x squared is 128, divide by 2. Therefore, x squared is 64, and x is the square root of 64, which is 8. Okay, so these are both 8. So now, if this side is x rad 2, for this isosceles right triangle, then both of these sides would be x. Okay, so write down that rule. So you have that rule written from the first page. Okay, what if, this is going to be a little trickier, what if the hypotenuse is a whole number? Like, let's say 10, okay? Then what happens? So you have x and x, right? So we have x squared plus x squared, I'm just doing the Pythagorean theorem, is 10 squared. 2x squared is 100. Divide by 2, divide by 2. X squared is 50. X is the square root of 50. And again, you can use your calculator or do it by hand. Make it 25 and 2. 5 rad 2. Okay, so 5 rad 2, 5 rad 2. All right, so where does this come from? So when you have this side of 10, and you want to get the other sides, okay, you're just going to divide 10 divided by rad 2. Think about it over here. You had x rad 2, and then you got rid of the rad 2, which means you divided it out. So if I do 10 divided by rad 2, there's something called rationalizing a denominator. You multiply by whatever the square root is over the square root. So you get 10 rad 2. And rad 2 times rad 2, I went over it over here, is just 2. So you get 5 rad 2. Okay, so you don't technically have to memorize a rule there. What you can do is you can just know this rule, okay, and figure it out. All right, so let me write that out in words. Okay, so when we have an isosceles right triangle, when we have a leg, let me put it that way. Now you know both legs are the same, so they don't even have to give you one. When we have a leg of an isosceles right triangle, we get the hypotenuse by multiplying by rad 2. By multiplying the leg by rad 2. Okay, and then when we have the hypotenuse, of an isosceles right triangle, we get the legs, they're the same, by dividing by rad 2. Okay, so let's do a couple more examples, and then we'll be doing flipped work during class. Let's say this side is 6 rad 2, and this is x. So remember, to get x, you would do 6 rad 2 times rad 2. Now keep in mind, rad 2 times rad 2 is just 2. So that's how you would go about doing it. Okay, so let's say this side is 18, and I'm looking for x. So since I have the hypotenuse, x would be 18 divided by rad 2. And then you would rationalize rad 2 over rad 2, 18 rad 2 over 2, which is 9. Okay? You can take the parts that are outside of the radical and divide them. All right? So that concludes this video. And we'll do more in class. Thanks, kids.